Hello everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Town Council meeting on Wednesday 23rd of October. I'd just like to remind everyone to have their phones on aeroplane mode if that's okay. It does interfere with our cameras. That's including the public, please. If you could put your phones on aeroplane mode, please. I'd like to start with Agenda 1, public participation. I believe there isn't anyone in the public that would like to speak. Okay, moving on to 2, apologies for absence. That's Councillor Hunt, Councillor Crotty, Councillor Rustem, Councillor L, Councillor Timpey and Councillor Wilson. There are no more. To receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests.
Member of Rother District Council.
Councillor Drexler?
Member of Rother District Council.
Okay, thank you. Chair's announcements, there are none. And then agenda 5, to approve the minutes of the following meetings of the full council. I'll just block that for Wednesday the 18th of September and Wednesday the 25th of September. Could I get a proposer? Thank you. And could I get a seconder for that? Thank you. And then could I have a vote on that, please? Okay, and then 6 is to note the minutes from the committee meetings held since the last meeting. Should have all looked at them, C, D and E. Okay, and then B is to note there are current vacancies on committees for planning and development, and there are 2 vacancies. Would anyone like to come forward for them? No. Okay. Recommendations from the committees, there are none, and to receive an update on the work of the town mayor. He hasn't sent in an update on that. And then moving on to 9, so reports from councillors. I believe there aren't any councillors here today, no, and there aren't any reports from any councillors. So that's that. And then moving on to 10. That is town rangers. So the Pelham were unable to provide rangers to consider the job certification for an in-house role. So what our town clerk has done is on, just check that, Appendix G. Does everybody have that? So the town clerk has looked at other town councils or other town ranger job specifications and come up with a job role. And what we'd like to do is see if everybody is happy with this and if they'd like to go ahead and look at getting some town rangers for the town. Councillor Glenberg.
First of all, can I just say it's a bit hard to hear up the back here. Just,
okay,
just
sorry.
say, that's all right. What I'd like to say about the town rangers is that I am against the town council proposal to bring in 8 town rangers and all that goes with them, such as vehicles and equipment. This council cannot justify billing residents in the sum of £500,000 when they are already paying RDC and East Sussex County Council for some of the same services under different headings, street cleansing, bin emptying, signage, etc. I wouldn't be opposed to having 2 town rangers on a trial period to start with so that we could review the need for them going forward. For us to consider taking on such a large team of 8 town rangers when residents won't be refunded by RDC nor East Sussex County Council for the same said services. This seems like a service dump by the back door, if you don't mind me saying, reminiscent of the public conveniences. So I don't want to see that, but I've got no objection to having two to fulfil the things that are needed to start with, and that we have a look at it that way. Thank you.
Okay. Does any other councillor have anything to say?
The other thing I was going to ask, I mean, we've got empty public bins that I thought was all being done by RDC anyway, and they seem to do it fairly regularly. And if they were to empty them, where do they empty them to? What do they do with it?
Okay. I think the point of it is that if we were to get the town rangers, we would ask our district to look into the 600,000 precept that they receive. I don't think they would give over the one for this year, but for next year we would ask them basically to see if they would give that 600,000.
Is that the Parks and Gardens 600,000?
Yes. Yeah.
But that doesn't cover emptying bins, does it? Out of that?
It doesn't. I don't think it does.
Within the park it does, so in any
Okay.
open spaces that there are bins, that's part of those contracts.
But yeah, that would be the plan. Councillor Drayton?
Thank you. I've got to restate, obviously I'm a Rother District Councillor. One of my big questions is how we would pay for this, and it's tied up with what was just said. Even if, and I don't know, I'm not speaking for Rother District Council, but my understanding is Rother District Council would not lessen the council tax charge paid to, charged to the public, to let us charge them a bit more to get the 600,000. Their council tax will stay as it is and will go up as sure as the sun comes up every morning, and we would have to raise the whole amount ourselves, as far as I know. I don't think there can be that straightforward, oh well, they're saving it there, we can have that. That would have to be looked into. And my own concern is, part of that programme is the success of similar programmes by other towns and councils. Possibly of a trip somewhere to have a look at a system that is working really well and is returning what it needs to the public. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell?
Yeah, I think this is a very good idea to start off with. I mean, I'll take Councillor Baygrove's point about 8 members of the team. Perhaps 8 is what we will initially end up with, such as other councils like Seaford have got sort of a number of people on this sort of particular role. But at the moment, it's early days for us. Now, as a member of the, I think it's the Amenities Committee, we were given some information that the development north of Bexhill, there are lands there that are going to need to be maintained and are being looked at to be passed on to us to maintain. If they are passed on to us and we take them on, we're going to need people to look after them. And so this is a preparation for that event. It's also a preparation for when Parks and Gardens, if they come across to us, beg your pardon, not when they, if they come across to us, because we need to be prepared for this. And to start off with 1 or 2 people, I think will be a good start in the right direction. Bearing in mind that if we don't do anything, we will be in a similar situation to the public toilets, whereas Rother District Council withdraw their funding for services they can no longer afford to keep up and are no longer allowed to raise funds to keep up, and we will be sitting here as a town council watching the town deteriorate around us. So let's do something about it. Let's start the ball rolling, get 1 or 2 town rangers in, get the town spruced up, get the town looking good with these members of staff, and then see where we can work on it and see where we can build. Because failure to do that would just be like Nero fiddling while Rome burns.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to, I'm in agreement with the other councillors. I think 8 is rather a large number at this instance. maybe then there might be an allocation from RDC special expenses because they are only attributable to the Bexhill facilities and only paid by Bexhill residents. So if we're taking over the responsibility for that, I'd like to see obviously some of the revenue coming our way. But I think it's too early to be able to make an informed decision on it at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor?
I think my views are fairly. I'd like to echo what Councillor Plim said, and Councillor Blagrove. Maybe 8 is too many. 2 or 3 might be worth it. I have spoken to a couple of the Rother Rangers and a couple of the Eastbourne Rangers. The Eastbourne ones are funded by the town bid, which is paid for by the businesses. One of them had a stab vest. They also help tourists.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with a lot of, well, most of the words have been said. I think 8 is a huge number. The only stumbling block I see with 2 is if one has a holiday, one probably wouldn't be able to work on their own just for health and safety reasons. So that's just a massive stumbling block straight away with 2. I totally agree with Councillor Plim, and I don't think we can fail to make Bexhill better by doing these small eye things. You know, just walking along the seafront this year, sometimes it's quite heartbreaking to see the state of the way some of the things have been left. And I think to get these Rangers in just to do the simple things and get them right will be beneficial. But I think this first stumbling block being from business at 2 will probably not be enough with annual leave.
Yeah, I agree. It would be nice to see, I think if this does happen, I think it would be nice to see actually people seeing that we are doing something, and when they ask what has the town council done, we can say actually we've got some town rangers out and they can actually see what we've done. So it'd be nice to get a motion in maybe from someone, or we can put a motion. Yeah, Councillor Goss.
I was going to say, backing up what's been said already, 2, yes, may be difficult. For 2, if they're going to maintain the full list of what's here, they're still going to need the same equipment as 8, which is a higher capital cost, which you've got to put somewhere and keep. So there's that side of it to be considered as well.
I think we need to start somewhere though, and I think it would be nice to start somewhere. Councillor Plim?
I think one particular point would be to start on the job specification, and what we're presented with here is the job spec. So if we can agree that the job specification is what we actually want, the next step will be, well, how many? And then we can discuss that, and no doubt that will come into play with the Finance Committee. So I think we're all in agreement that we could do with the town and areas being spruced up a bit, and we've got the ability to do that, but we have to give the person the job description in order to work to. So my proposal will be to for this committee, the full council, to agree to the job specification of Town Ranger.
Councillor Blagrove, one question.
Well, I was just going to say that I have always thought it's a good idea. When I joined the council, what I asked in the first instance if we could have a town ranger, and I was told one day, you know. But looking forward, we obviously, if it's a good idea and it does work in other councils, and I've heard examples of where that is right, then we will end up with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows. But I'm glad that everybody is, or nearly everybody is, that's spoken, is on the same wavelength for that, and I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Councillor Drayson, then if we
Thank you. Just on the specification, it's a big job. It's very big. But how would it be proposed? And perhaps it's not for this; it's for later. But how do they get tasked? Is it through the clerk? Is it through who decides on any given day whether they're cutting grass in some verge or cleaning the sides up in Sidley? I just wonder how they're actually getting deployed.
I believe once it happens there will be a plan there, and there will be a member of staff that will tell them where to go, what to do, what the spec is, and how they'll run once we've agreed that. Councillor Blagrove?
We're obviously going to have to do some homework. That this does work at other councils, and we are, you know, all good ideas are copied. I read that somewhere once, but they are. And we need to investigate and do our homework and see where it works well and why and how it works well, and we just have to copy that format.
Okay. Would you think that would be us as councillors to do that, or?
Yes, I think we, well, you know, everybody's involvement will be good. But yes, we could, if we wanted to, we could do that.
Okay. But just take a couple more. Councillor? Yeah.
What provision does Rother make to carry out this function at present?
What does Rother... Sorry, what was the question?
What provision does Rother Council have to carry out this function at present?
Well, they do look after the parks and gardens and areas of the town as well. But there are bits that obviously not everyone's happy with that we want to tidy up, and that's the whole point of the Rangers.
In other words, Rother are not bothering to do this.
Well, they do some of it, yes, but there are areas that obviously the town aren't happy with, or residents and councillors aren't happy with. That would be the whole point of the Rangers, to then tidy up the town where Rother aren't looking into. Yeah, Councillor Cox.
I mean, maybe the job specification should be sort of revamped to take out typical Rother type duties. I mean, it's fine, clean and maintain bus shelters, but it's our problem anyway. So yeah, that sort of thing is fine. Public space and community facilities, but remove graffiti, and maybe take out the bins, the verge cutting that we pay for anyway, to the SCC, I think, and those sort of things. So it reduces the requirement.
I believe the job specification is quite rough. It will be something that we would then look into once we agree to the town Rangers. I think this is done by the town clerk. A general look at what they would do. Yeah, but there can be additions and there can be bits taken out. I think that's the whole point of this. But it's the whole point is if we agree to the town Rangers, and then we can look at the job.
If we're starting in a slow way with 2 or 3, I mean, if you take out sort of things like verge cutting, that it takes a lot of equipment away and a lot of problems. Yeah.
But I think the whole point of it is where we said 8, and now a lot of councillors are saying to drop that. You know, I understand. So I think that would then be looked at to then be decreased or additions in there, and I think that would be a later on addition. Councillor Jacqueline, sorry.
A couple of the workers that I spoke to were clearly self-starters, so perhaps if we start with 3 or 4, at least a couple of them will be self-starters. But I agree with Councillor Drayson, someone has to make sure they do whatever they've got to do.
Yes, I also think that once you start 2 or 3 people working, owning businesses myself, you find the leader in that as well. Yeah. So they will have a job spec from our town clerk, was one of our employees, but they will then, one of them will step up, I'm sure, to then become a manager of some sort with the other Rangers. Again, I'm not guaranteeing that, but that's what I would guess would happen in that sort of situation. So yeah, Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, just picking up on Councillor Gross's point there about not having the grass verges and in the job spec. They're there so the town ranger role can grow into it, and it's a job description for that particular person. If they weren't there, you'll then have to renegotiate the job description for that person, and so it'll be counterproductive to not have them there. At the moment, we're paying East Sussex County Council a certain amount of money to cut our grass verges. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, once this is in place, that we then realise that actually we can fund the equipment and we've got the staff already here, so we won't have to pay East Sussex County Council to cut the grasses anymore, we do it ourselves. But if we didn't have it in the job description and the job specification, we would have to renegotiate with our staff to give them a different workload, a different job title. So it'll be very churlish to sort of not have them in with the job description now. Doesn't mean they're going to have to do it now. It means that they could do it in the future.
Yeah, take your point.
Right. Councillor Drayson?
Thank you. Just I thank Councillor Pym for that, because I was thinking things should be left out. But yeah, so occasionally there should be words as necessary or something in there. But taking up your point, Chairman, the agenda item is for us to consider the job spec, and this is the job spec in front of us. So we won't have another opportunity, unless we move a motion to defer it, to talk about the job spec. This is the job spec we've got in front of us. And so I thank Councillor Flynn for that, because I was worried about some of the things, but I do take the point that the job will grow, and you know, even things like cutting hedges, if they cut the wrong person's hedge, a private hedge, there will be problems, and so that will grow as and when they're operational, and we can take advice from other places. But this is the specification we're talking about, so I think we've
it
got
does
to,
say, there's also in that, it
And
does
then
say
the
flexible with ability to adapt to changing workloads and priorities. So there is that in it to make sure that if there are any additions, that they can be added.
I thought that's part of the person spec as opposed to the job spec. The bit of flexibility to change to other workloads.
Okay. Can we move forward with this? So would anyone like to put a motion forward, or? Yeah, that's okay.
I propose that we accept the job specification of Town Ranger.
And we look for a town ranger, or we stick to?
I think that's the next step.
Yeah. Okay.
The next step. I think if we just accept the job specification of Town Ranger,
Okay.
unless the clerk feels that we would need to embellish that a little bit more.
Okay. Do I have a second up? Councillor Drayson? And could I get a vote on that, please? Anybody against? Anybody? Sorry. Anybody abstaining?
No, Paul.
Four. Okay, so abstaining. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we'll move on then from that, if that's okay?
Sorry, Chairman.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just looking at
The bit that was missed
Yeah,
out was
sorry.
the budget
the.
and the way forward.
Okay,
and
sorry.
We've agreed the
Yeah,
job specification.
Okay,
and
sorry.
that
I was
quite
just checking that
specific.
as well, yeah. Sorry. Okay, so if we could move on to the recruitment plan first before we move to the budget. So I know you said not to go for 8 town rangers, but there was a councillor that said maybe 3 or 2. Yeah, so okay. Councillor Flynn?
Through you, Chair, could I ask the clerk what plans she envisage happening with this particular role, and then maybe we'd be able to take some guidance from the clerk on this.
Okay, through you, Chair, I was asked to draw it up on the basis that you would be claiming the special expenses from ROVA and taking on the parks and open spaces. So I've calculated the 8 based on the proposal that was discussed last time, which was that you would take on parks and open spaces from ROVA, and you would also take on the removal of graffiti, the general tidying of the town. So I haven't done any calculations on any other workload. So depending on the workload that you want the people to do, depends how many you need. So if you're not going to cut all of the parks and open spaces, you won't need 8. But if you need to tell me what you want that role to do, then I need to go away and work out how many hours the work that you want them to do could potentially add up to work out how many you would need.
Councillor Blago?
I'd like to think that the town rangers are a totally separate entity to the fact that we will or will not take on parks and gardens, and it kind of scares me to hear the link that's happening there, and that's what I'm trying to say earlier, that parks and gardens are a totally different entity. we've got a lot of work. It's a major task, that one. And this is separate to that, which is why I'm eager to only start with 2 as ordinary town rangers with the job description, and not have this linked to anything to do, for any reason whatsoever, with Parks and Gardens or RDC. This is a totally different thing. This is something for Bexhill Town Council, and being a relatively new
Sorry,
council
Councillor.
still.
Sorry, could everyone just check their phones, please, because there's a bit of interference with the cameras. That they are definitely on aeroplane mode. Councillor Frago, sorry.
Are we working again?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the connection, or I can see why some people might like to link that to that, but that is out of the question because Parks and Gardens is an unknown entity at this point. So I think we go along without including any of RDC or anything to do with that. I was going to say that this is relatively, I know we've been going 3 years or something like that, I've lost count, but still we're going to be introducing new things like this all the time, which we actually know will work because it works elsewhere, although we may not know how it works, but it's not past our remit to actually find out, and we will. And so we're always going to face this sort of thing, you know, the difficulties of putting it together and how the strategy of it all works. So that shouldn't frighten us, you know, if we do the good homework on it that needs to be done, it's fine. It's about taking on two rangers in my point of view. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Grayson?
Very much agree with what Councillor Frago just said, and of course that means that the budget has to come from our own money, and we have to have a separate discussion about the budget and where the money comes from. I totally agree, it shouldn't be linked to the gardens, and to rather, if we want to employ these people, we need to pay for those people.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Thomas?
Am I right in thinking that Rother don't actually employ anybody to do parks and gardens at the moment, but put it out to contract?
It's contractors, yes.
Sorry, I've got another one.
Yeah, Councillor.
Just listening to Councillor Drayson then, saying, you know, we've got to use our own money. And I wondered how many people would feel quite surprised about that, because it doesn't surprise me. If it's an entity that we want, it's a cost to ourselves, although somehow the Pelham were getting involved. I couldn't see the reasoning for that either. But this is for us, and it's our council, and if we think we need it, we must pay for it, and there's no two ways about that. We don't need outside involvement with things like this. Thank you.
I think the original plan was that it was that we were going to get the 600,000 precept from Brother at a later date, not this year but for next year. Maybe a discussion to be had with them, and I think the plan again was that we'd have 8 rangers, but now the plan has changed, or it's obviously we're discussing the plan of 2
So will we be
2 or 3
recosting
rangers.
it at, if we have 2?
It would be costing
will we recost
at
it?
2 rangers, yeah, rather than, so the
Yeah.
costing here on the budget is obviously for 8 rangers and equipment, and I think it was around 500,000.
It's a lot of money.
So that would then bring up the, so it would come from 44.97 to £73.82 per household. On a band D, basically, but that would be with the with 500,000 added on. Is that correct? Yeah, with 500,000. But obviously, if it was only 2 rangers, then that would be around 40,000. But then you still have the equipment, etc. So I'm not 100% by looking at this what that would be with 2 rangers.
Yeah, it's going to be a totally
It's going to be
different
it's going to be a different number basically. But yeah, we would have to raise that money basically. But I really do think it would be a great addition to the town and really clean up the town to show people that we've done something. And I completely understand where councillors are coming from with the 2 or 3 ranges. So, could I, Councillor Goss?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with sort of what's been said about costs not linking to the RDC Parks and Gardens. The job specification isn't really written around parks and gardens.
Sorry, Councillor, can I just, is it still, yeah.
The job spec isn't written around sort of the parks and gardens, planting and all that sort of thing. It's a bit of grass cutting and verge cutting, this sort of thing. If we were to take on parks and gardens, I think it would have to be a subcontractor who would need more than 8 people to try and take care of all the parks.
I think that discussion at the moment isn't being had. I think the discussion is that we look at
we
either
keep
2
it
or
separate.
3 ranges.
Yeah.
So that's the discussion that I think we need to stick to at the moment.
Yeah.
Councillor Carroll.
I think listening to the room, I think we're a million miles away, and we're going to be for a long time having that discussion, as in what direction we want to go in, and what direction we should be going in. We're going 2 different ways at the moment. I think we need to get a bit more clarity to bring it down, and for this, the money we're talking about, and to bring that put that onto our residents, it needs to be right and it needs to be perfect before we get it right. So I think we need to nail down what we're actually doing at the moment, or where we're going.
Okay, Councillor Spence.
With that in mind, what's been said about 2 or 3, can I propose that we ask the clerk to budget for 3 town rangers and then come back to us with the budgeting for that? Whether the timescale's right for that or not, I don't know, and whether that will be the process that we should follow, I'm not too sure yet.
Okay.
It could be a way forward.
So I just get one more from Councillor Blagrave, and then we'll go.
I'd like to propose that we look at costings for 2 and 4.
Okay, I'll put Councillor Plym's motion forward first, please. So, do I have a seconder for Councillor Plym's? Yeah. Okay. And then can I have a vote on that, please?
Sorry, what was the vote?
Can you read the...
So it's
3.
for 3, to look at 3 and some equipment for 3 rangers. Can I have a vote on that, please?
3 rangers.
Go and do the budget.
Anyone against that? No? Yeah? No. Okay. Okay. And then, sorry, I'm just going to ask the question, but Councillor
No, so if 3's been agreed, then without an amendment, then that is carried.
Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. And then the budget side of that is obviously going to come back to us, so that the budget that's here isn't what will be, obviously, with 3 rangers and some equipment. So we can move on, I think, from that. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I was going to refer to our next item on the agenda, to review budget and preset proposals. Bearing in mind what we've just been discussing, I would like to propose that this goes back to the Finance Committee for amendment to incorporate this requirement.
Okay. Sorry,
I can just bring it straight back here. So if all you want to query on the budget is that figure, I'll bring that figure back here next month so you can look at it. Is that what you wanted to go to the Finance Committee first?
Yes, actually, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. So we'll get the figure for 3 town rangers. We'll give it to the Finance Committee. What will they? And they look at it and then they bring it back here
and see the impact of it and see if there's any savings that could be made within this budget to accommodate this extra salary. And also, we didn't get a full chance to scrutinise the whole of the preset item by item, and I'd like to see that done.
Okay, that's the purpose of tonight. So what's happened with the budget so far is it's been to each committee and it's been to the Finance Committee. So each committee has scrutinised each bit, and this budget that's being presented tonight is the result of all of those meetings. So tonight's your opportunity to look at what all of those committees, including the Finance Committee, what they decided they think you should do. You have a look at that tonight. If you've got any bits that need tweaking or changing, I can do that. If you want the Finance Committee to do more research, that's a separate task that we can look at. So tonight is about going through that budget, seeing how you feel about it as the full council, and seeing if it's what you are thinking for next year. Because if you want to talk about cost saving and things, we can talk about them tonight. That's what it's for. Does that help?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of all of the council having input to this anyway.
Okay. So, yeah, so if we could look at the
Excuse
reviews. Sorry. Councillor Bago.
I'd just like to say that I'm not, sadly, on the finance committee, so I could only watch it on the video. And I saw a lot of surprised faces on that video, and it seemed like something wasn't quite right. Let's just say that. I don't know what it was that wasn't right, but it seemed that people weren't prepared and hadn't, although Clark did say, about something about being prepared, but it seemed to me that after that I spoke to 3 councillors and they weren't prepared and they weren't happy about that. And as I say, I wasn't there, so I can't say exactly what it is, but it seems to me that when Councillor Brailsford has asked for that to be deferred, she's obviously got a good reason to do that, and I think probably we should be doing that rather than, I mean, you've only got to watch the video to see it, this is why I'm so glad that we've got videos going on, that we can look back and see it. But if the Chairman of Finance is not happy with something, we need to listen to her. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can. I think that's what today's discussion can be about. If there is an issue, then obviously that can be brought up, and we can find out what that issue is.
Because it just doesn't feel clear to me, or
Okay.
some
So
others.
it can be brought up today, and that's the whole point of today in front of full council.
Well, I wasn't sure where to put that in, but
Yeah, no,
I've
that's
said
fine.
it
But
now.
I just think that can be brought up now, can't it? If there's an issue, then that
Yes.
can be brought up, and we can hopefully resolve what the issue is. Councillor Drayson.
Thank you. I'd like to bring up something. I had it. It was going to be a question at the end of tonight, but it's relevant to what's just been discussed about the budget. Before I ask, or before I say it, I must redeclare my interest as a member of Rother District Council. When the council refused to fund Bexhill Museum installing a new public toilet inside Edgerton Park, to my mind, nothing was said to disparage or belittle the museum. I, for one, would welcome greater involvement with the museum and would wish to see this council take on funding, which currently lies with Rother District Council. Rother District Council has filled the role previously filled by Bexhill Borough Council and has funded the museum since 1964. I believe that the funding of a town's museum should rest with a town's council. My question is, as the budget stands, would this council be able to take on this role during 2025-26 if it wanted to, without having to increase the precept to have additional income from somewhere? And it's this fear of we fix a budget now and we can't do anything about it till 2026.
Councillor Penn.
I think Councillor Drayson answered his questions some questions ago when he pointed out that Rother District Council would not reduce their burden on the taxpayer, and we would be expected to increase the burden on the taxpayer for any services that are passed down to us. So with that in mind, if we were going to take on the museum, I wouldn't expect Rother District Council to give us any money to do so. We'd have to probably find the money ourselves.
It could be a question that we ask Rother.
No, it's if I was minded to at another meeting, I would like to move perhaps that we take over the funding of the museum, but there's no point in a councillor moving that if the budget doesn't allow for it until 2026, and we have to discuss it in December 2025 to make sure it's in 26's budget.
Okay. I think that's...
We've not had any movement from District Council regarding the museum.
No, in the report of the last council of the leaders meeting, there was a comment about we thought it was a good idea, and when I asked what that idea was, it was this council taking over the museum.
Okay.
But that hasn't.
Do we know any sort of idea of cost?
No, but I just know it's there
Just
and
an
it's a
idea.
possibility, and I want to know how we cope with that in our budget. If someone during
I think
the
if
next
that comes
year,
up,
we
then
need-
that will be dealt with when it comes up. Because it's not
hopefully
really
reserves
it's
would
not
be
really,
available.
it hasn't come up, so it's not something that we can.
Which is why it was a
really
question for the end,
Yeah,
not for
okay,
this. But
Okay. Councillor Flynn?
We could possibly be in the same situation with the museum as we are with the toilets. Rather, we want to lease them to us rather than give them to us, or even sell them for a nominal charge to pass it over to us. They want the services handed over, but not the actual building as such. It's a complicated process, and until Rother start that process off, we don't know where we're going with it.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, my thoughts on this was, we need the facts and figures and the income and expenditure figures before we can make any informed decision on that. So, unless we've got that, I don't know what we're talking about.
This is for the museum. Are we on the museum?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Until that comes forward and we actually know, I don't think we can really discuss that. To be honest.
I think you're spot on, Chair. We need Rother District Council to come up with a statement of intent in order to go forward.
Yeah.
And until they come forward, with all due respect to Councillor Drayson, we can't take another councillor's word for that, no matter where they sit within the council or Rother District Council. We need somebody to come direct to us and say, this is our intent. We intend to sell we intend to do this for the museum services, and then we can work on it and act on it.
Sorry, I think Councillor Goss was
From sort of later things, RDC said they have a meeting on the 4th of November to discuss their assets and what they're going to do with them. I think it's just something you have to be a bit careful with, because going from what happened last week on Pebsham, where we have to take over the park to have a small area, I mean, if we'd have said yes prior to that to the toilet in there, we would probably have to take over the whole park down there, because they wouldn't, if we're funding a toilet, they will probably try and swing that as well. So I think there's lots of things to be careful of if they do.
Councillor Jacqueline, sorry.
I'm thinking forward to the point in time when the residents see the extra amount on their bills. I think we should be cautious as to how much we increase people's bills by if we haven't delivered very much. But if by that time we have actually got more toilets or the Pebsham thing, shovel going or whatever, then maybe we can ask people for more money. But that from their point of view, I think the proof of pudding is what in them seeing us actually having done things.
I think most of it in here, the bigger increase would be if we would take the town rangers in the budget, basically. And hopefully if we did, then we'd be giving back to the town and cleaning up the town, basically. Councillor Braygrove?
Councillor Plim spoke about RDC just now, and the thing is, I go back again to say that we haven't been here that long. We've got things which have involved RDC, whether we liked it or not. You know, with the toilets, for instance, is a good one, and we know Parks and Gardens is coming up too. And this is a brick wall that we are hitting time and time again, because we haven't got the right atmosphere, we haven't got the right settings for the two councils to actually speak about this, to debate this, and to talk about it amicably, and to come up with an answer that is good for us and them. We haven't got that, and frequently we don't get answers, so we're just, you know, we've said before, well, if you don't answer us by such and such a date, you know, it's the deal's off. But we need to find a way to actually make that happen, because there are a good number of councillors in here that are good debaters, and I don't know whether another whole meeting could be set up with 4 of RDC and 4 of us, or anything like that. I just don't know, but to me, communication is missing, and it will remain missing, and we'll keep on hitting that wall unless we come up with an answer to that. You know, it could be so much better, and I want it to be better. I think it could, but just no one's come up with the answer yet.
Yeah. I think that's something we can talk about when we have if we have a vision exercise or
Yeah.
something, maybe we could add it into that. But I'd like to go back onto the budget, if that's okay. And if there's any questions or anything on there, so we can move on with that, if that's okay.
So did we defer that budget?
So, sorry.
So, just on the
Yeah.
budget, I just when you mentioned the town rangers, so I can't. It hasn't got a line near the bottom of the page when it's got included town rangers after 25-26. That's if we had agreed to the 600,000, we'd have been looking at that much more charging our.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what would happen, as far as I'm aware, is we would go back to Rother and ask them if we could have the 600,000 preset. But until that happens, we would have to come up with the money for that year, basically.
Thank you.
And then hopefully the year after, we would then get the 600,000, which we could bring the preset down after that. But that was only if we had the 8 and the equipment.
Yeah.
Councillor Brailsford spoke about deferring the budget.
Yes.
Where did we get to on that? Sorry.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going to go on to now. So
Okay.
could we get the reason why you'd like that deferred?
Mainly it's because of the way I work, and I would have liked to have taken each of these items here individually to make sure that all of our committee were in agreement with it bit by bit. I respect what the clerk said about the other committees, and I see that their requirements have been put in orange, but there are other things, for example the staff costs, which have got a bit of leeway figure work in it, but I don't know whether that could actually support the cost of 2 or 3 town rangers or not.
Yeah, that's what the finance committee was for. So if you remember when we had our pre-meeting, and then I sent out this budget to the finance committee members a week before the committee to give everybody a chance to look at every line, to come to the finance committee to go through it. So we, as chair of finance and clerk, and we had the deputy as well, we sat and went through this and said, okay, the finance committee will then spend that meeting looking at the entire process. So we had that finance committee. They decided to do what they decided to do at that meeting. They had all the paperwork, and that was their role. Their role was to look at it in its entirety and refer it back here for an overview by the full council. So the full council doesn't have to adopt it tonight. You've got until the end of December. This is your first opportunity to go through this budget as a full council and discuss it. If you defer it, you're just going to lose the opportunity that you've got right now to start looking at it and start asking some questions. And if there's things that this full council isn't quite sure of, it gives me an opportunity to go back, get the answers, come back to the next meeting. So you do it now so that you have a couple of meetings as a sort of safety net, because you don't want to be doing this in December, because then you've got no safety net, because the preset request has to go into Rother in January. There is no leeway with that. So your opportunity tonight is to go through as a full council. If you decide that you want to put it back to the finance committee for them to have another stab at it, they will look at it, but then it will just come back here again next month, and I'll be asking you to do the same thing. So I would urge you to take the opportunity tonight while you're all here and it's on the agenda to go through it and look at it. And if you've got questions, you can lodge them and I can get those answers for you, because you're going to run out of opportunities to review this budget. And it's a big decision that you're making for the taxpayer. So if you keep deferring it, we may run out of time, and I'd like you to make an informed decision so that you all feel confident that you've made the best decision that you can make for the preset. This is your role. Only full council can make that decision.
So could I just ask Councillor Brailsford, would you be happy to point out what you're not happy with tonight?
Well, first of all, there's been a discussion about Rother having a meeting on the 4th of November. We don't know what the outcome of that is, so we can't assess what our liabilities may be until that meeting's taken place. Well, am I wrong?
No, if they decide to give us the toilets or something and hand it over, we've got the maintenance.
I feel as if I've got a blindfold on, and I've been asked to make a decision, and I want to know what Rother's intentions are, and then we can go ahead fully informed.
Yeah, Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, you can only go on what you're presented with here and what we know here. We can only budget for what we actually know is going to happen. And this is what we're presented with. So this is what we look at. We can't stop everything and say, oh, we don't know what Rother are going to say in November the 4th, so let's just wait until they've said what they're going to say. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. You've got to go with what you're presented with. November the 4th, something might come out of the bag, be presented with us, and then we'll be presented with an emergency meeting or something like that, if it needs an emergency meeting. But until then, we've got what we've got. We've got a budget to work to, and we scrutinise this particular budget. If there's items on here we don't like, say it now, goes back to finance, and then they review what the full council have said. That's all right.
Yeah, I think if there's an issue, then we just say what the issues are tonight, and then it goes back to the town clerk and is looked at, basically. Come on, Councillor Drayson.
And it comes back to full council. The finance committee have done their job, or
But I think
for
that's
whatever
the whole point.
reasons are, but the final arbiter on this is the full council, not the finance committee. So I would say, even if Councillor Bracewood wants to defer it tonight, we defer it after we've had the discussions on the bits we've got now, so that we don't miss the opportunity to talk about it. And for example, I wanted to say, at the finance committee, I was very impressed with what the clerk told us about the staff costs and how she was redeploying people and was saving money on that front. And that is not detail you can go into every time. It went to the council, and it was an excellent. I just applaud the way she actually handled that. And the staff costs are the staff costs, but we are redeploying people to make up for gaps and people that aren't required. So my first one was a positive on the staff
I think
costs.
that's what the town clerk's saying, is we've got the opportunity now, so let's have a look at it now, and any issues there, we can go back, it can go back to finance, and then it will have to come back to full council again. So why not have a look at it now and just see if there's any issues, let us know, and then we can go back to Councillor Goss.
On this, my understanding, that's probably wrong, but under Devonshire Square toilets, we've got 120k put down. Is that the sort of what's remaining of the 150 that we had in for toilet cleaning generally? Should we take them all over, or what? Where's 120 come from? Down under reserves at the moment.
Yeah, a couple of things. I'll do that one first. So that you've been holding reserve for the toilets, each, and we update that each month. So yes, that reserve's been reduced by any money we've spent. So now we are predicting that reserve that you had set aside for the toilets will probably be 120,000 by the end of the year. So what I'm suggesting is you just park that for now, because you've got a committee that are getting quotes for a complete refit of the Devonshire Square toilets. And we don't know how much that's going to cost. So let's just leave that where it is for now. And then that can cover the cost of the refit if it's within that budget. If it's less, you're a winner. You've got some money left over, and then I'll come back and I'll go, you've got extra in the reserves, where would you like to put it now? If it costs more than that, then we'll talk about it.
Okay, it was just with it against it. I didn't know if it was the cleaning budget or what.
Councillor Drayson?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, one of the things that specifically came from finance was the question of streaming, and whether or not there was a view to perhaps only streaming full council rather than committees, which would save money, based on the viewing figures, which are lower than low. And I think that was for a discussion that the finance committee asked to come to full council on: do we want to stream every meeting still, or save money on that budget?
Councillor Maygrove?
2.5 years ago, it was me that put forward the motion to have the cameras on and the recordings, and I worked out very early that it's very expensive to do that for every meeting, and I asked for recordings, audio recordings of committees and full council to be filmed. But I got talked down on that, and it got changed, and now we've come right the way round to the same thing again. I want to say that, and I've said this before and I'll keep on saying it, I'll be back with this same line. There are 18 of us, none of us have got the job of putting that out to the public. We've got the cameras in. I'm very pleased with the cameras. I'm very pleased with the audio. It's a great reference point. When anything goes wrong, we can look back at it. But the thing is, this talk of removing any of it at this stage, you know, this is not for us. Although I did hear a clerk at another council say that they run the cameras for their own benefit because it is evidence of what happens in their meetings. The fact that other people look at it is by the by. But the residents deserve this. This is not a money-saving thing. You know, I'm probably the one in this council that is always banging on about saving money. I'm not saving money on cameras when this is down to transparency for the people of this town that want to see what we're doing. The fact is that this council and the administrators for it, and I don't know whose job it is, are not putting it out. The only one person that's doing that is me, because I put it onto my groups. And the figures are low, they're going to remain low. Last week I found another way to say subscribe, you know, but it's only me. This should be, we are advertising a lot of things, really, in this council, here and there. Why don't we advertise that? Why don't we say subscribe to our channel? Why isn't it on the front? Another councillor, sorry, I'll get mad on this one. Another councillor phoned me the other day in a rage and said, where's the films? How do I get hold of the films? How do you get hold of the films? Why can't you find them? No, that person couldn't find them. That person didn't know where to find them. The public don't know where to find them. They don't know you have to go to YouTube. They're not, this whole point is not advertised to the residents of this town on our website, nor our Facebook or Twitter or whatever we've got. Is absolutely no good if we are not going to tell people this is where you can see us talking about issues that affect you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all being looked at.
Good.
That we will hopefully be able to employ someone that will do that. But yeah, I agree. I think the cameras, when we first come into the council, it was a big issue. You know, we fought hard to get the cameras here.
Yeah.
And we also don't know that if we were to cut the cameras, what the price could go up. Because we're only then having one a month for one, you know, so we don't know that either. So it may be trying to save money, we're actually not saving money.
I could name you some other things and some other places where we could save some money, but it's not on the cameras, not on that, because that's for the people, that's for the residents.
Okay. So Councillor Jenkins.
It's my understanding that the proposal is to keep the camera budget as it is, and if
It's
so,
not on the agenda, so I don't think it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's just something that Councillor Drayson brought up, but it's not on there, so we don't need to.
and perhaps if it is to be publicised, time points of the key agenda bits in the meeting would help people so that they could go to the bit that they were interested in.
Yeah, we could maybe.
It should really be straight away on the website and tell you straight away, and the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Go here for the latest, you know,
Yeah.
in clear language where people can see and find it.
I think that again, that we are working on that, or
That's good.
town clerk's working on that, so that will happen in the
Thank
near
you.
future, hopefully. Councillor Drayson.
I'm more than happy that there's not a motion on it, but from finance, it was the streaming of meetings will be highlighted for discussion and review. That's why I brought it up. If we don't want to change it, that's fine. We've just reviewed it. I don't think there needs to be a motion on it, but it was part of finance.
That's fine, thank you. So going back to the budget, that is part of the budget, I know, but are there any other issues that we'd like to go back on this with the budget? Do you want to start to look at anything? Councillor Drayson?
It's not for this year, but going forward, I've said before, I would like to look at Christmas lights extending to Little Common and Sidley, and that our support is not just for Central Bexley.
Okay.
It should be for the whole of the town, but this year it's too late to do anything.
Yeah, that's fine. So that can be something we can add for next year. Councillor Carroll?
Well, thank you. I'd like to second that as well. I'm looking at the price increase for Bexhill, and I'm looking at the price increase on Sidley and Little Common. It does need to be spoken about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be discussed today if we want to look at that for next year. Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, just point out there's 2 external organisations that arrange Christmas lights for Sidley and for Little Common, and not one of them has come to us for funding for that.
Yeah.
Just to,
Yeah. So maybe allow them to come forward if they
well,
want.
if they were needing extra money, I'm sure they would come to us.
Yeah, I totally hear that. But what I don't, sorry, Paul, thank you. I think with an increase of 55k in 1 year, I think that needs to be reviewed, and it can't be an increase of 55 next year.
What, another 55 you mean? Or
Well, if it's not done in 1 year, it can do it in 2.
I think we're pretty much set on the price of the Christmas lights. So I'm in that committee, and it won't. Well, I say it won't, but it won't increase another 55. But I think
It has in 1 year. So.
Well, it hasn't increased 55. It's increased.
Would it help if I just went through it line by line and just told you what was in the lines, and then you just tell me if you're happy or not? Provisionally, we're not approving anything. I just think maybe, because there's lots of things that are discussed tonight that aren't quite true, but they've been discussed at other committees, and they've been discussed at other times, weeks and months ago, and you're not expected to remember all this stuff. So would that help if we just went through it, and I just tell you the facts that you need to know, and then if you've got a question you can ask me, and let's just do it like that. I think it just might be easier. Because you're going to bounce around.
No, I just want to clarify one thing. I totally respect what Councillor Plym said, but that would be mine and Councillor Hunt's job to go to certain parties in Sidley and say, come to us. I'm just saying, as councillors, we need to, now it's been highlighted, I will go and turn it. Yeah.
But I think the town clerk's saying, do you want me to call out?
Well, I can just read through it if you think that would be useful. But if you're happy with what you discussed, I don't want to go through everything. That if you already know what it is and you're happy with it, so I think maybe just a consensus from everyone how they'd like to do it. But if you're happy with what you've discussed and you want to move on, then I'm happy to move on too, because I can talk to any of you anytime about this outside of the meeting. It's no problem.
Councillor Brailsford, would you like to bring anything up that you would?
Well, there's just one item on here for
Yeah.
the CCTV.
Okay.
It's got predicted year end 24, 25, 55,000. For 25, 26, 30,000. So does that mean that grant has come through? That was going to be given to us by, I forget what it was now.
Because we had to pay up front for cameras or
yeah,
something.
well, we
Right.
paid for the setting up costs, and then there was a refund that we could have got with something in
I
the
believe
region.
that's for extra cameras in Edgerton Park.
Well, there was, yeah, but that was before that was decided. It was, I can't remember, it was a
The
special
grants, I think the
grant.
grants were already discussed
should-
and we can't get the grants, it's the police that... I'll go through
Oh, was it the
town clerk?
police that...
Yeah.
Right. So when you took over the CCTV, what the first job you had to do was to upgrade the cameras. Now this is all on the report, on the appendix to get attached to them. So I want you to know you have all had all this information. I'm just going to give you a recap, okay? In summary, there are lots more detail behind this, and I'm not going to go into all that detail. If you want to know the detail, have a look at the report, okay? But the summary is, when this council took over the CCTV, the cameras needed upgrading. That is a one-off payment to upgrade them. This year's budget includes the money to upgrade the cameras. Once they've been upgraded, they've been upgraded. They will last between 3 to 5 years. So you'll need to consider some sort of planned maintenance, because they will all need to be upgraded again in another 3 to 5 years. So we can talk about that when we talk about reserves. In the meantime, this year's costs don't include the upgrade, because you've had your upgrade. So this year's costs will be less than they were last year. Okay? So what you're paying this year is the maintenance of the existing cameras, but we also know that the Amenities Committee want to look at 2 to 3 extra cameras in Edgerton Park to address the antisocial behaviour. So we've given the Finance Committee, the Amenities Committee and the Finance Committee have reviewed that we have got a projection from the police on how much roughly that would be. It may be wrong, because we don't know what the costs will be at the time. All you can do is predict. So we're predicting that to continue with the maintenance and to get a few new cameras, that's what it could cost. Sussex Police Crime Commissioner offered grants to offset the maintenance of CCTV. That used to be paid to Rother because they maintained the CCTV. That now gets paid to the Town Council. That is only an amount of about £4,000. So I say only because when you look at the cost of your CCTV, it's a drop in the ocean. But it's money that we're getting from the PCC. The contract has been signed and we're waiting for that money to come in. So all of those things are ongoing and they're discussed at a different committee, which is amenities, which we'll discuss in a couple of weeks. So that is what's in this budget right now is what we're predicting to be maintenance, any other like little vandalism problems and things that we might have happen, and for some new cameras in Edgerton Park.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other questions on the budget?
No.
No. Okay. So that was just to review the budget. Do we need to do anything else on that?
So if you want me to look at any changes, any things that you want, you mentioned cost saving. I'm not sure where you can save from, if I'm honest, because I've cut from as many places that I could potentially cut. So this, if you look at it line by line, you'll see we've rejigged all of the staff costs in order to recruit a communications officer who could go online and run the website, run the Facebook and do all those things. That's been discussed at many meetings. So we know that the council has identified some time ago that they do not have the resources to run communications how they'd like. And I've been pushing and pushing for that role and asking if I can have that communications role, you could have somebody in the office whose sole job will be to communicate the work of the council. That's what you're telling me you want, but to do that you need to have somebody to be able to deliver it. So I've rejigged the staffing resources so that you don't have to put your staff costs up to recruit for that role, like Councillor Drayson said. So you can't cut any more costs from staff costs because we're already at the bone, and I'm giving you a comms officer in return for moving around the resourcing. So hopefully that's good. That's a good news story. Can't really change the bank charges, they are what they are. We've cut back so much on staff mileage. We try not to go anywhere. We try not to do anything that we can do that's going to cost you some money. We walk where we can walk, you know, we already do all that stuff, and you'll see that in the savings that we've made this year against the budget. So I've been able to reduce that. We're not going to go for any more recruitment agencies or anything like that. We'll just carry on recruiting locally because it's been a success for us so far. So I've cut the recruitment budget. Training I've kept the same because we need to train people. We just need to, and we'll spend that. The rent and rates, can't do much about that. That's the rent is what it is and the rates are what they are. Utilities, can't do much about those. We went out to tender and we got you the cheapest quotes that we could possibly get, and we've signed up for a contract for the cheapest possible with EDF, I think now. So you've saved on your utilities already. You cut all the cleaning in the hub. We've opened 5 days and we've maintained the minimum cleaning. We have like a cleaner once a week. We are cleaning the hub for you in between serving customers, in between doing our job to save you money. Okay, so we've kept the cleaning all the same, but we're open full time. We don't need any more furniture for the hub, so I've sliced that budget right out. We're going to make do with the desks, and we've repaired a couple of things and we're going to make do. So I've cut from there. You've cut your meeting room hire because you're no longer at the town hall, you're here, and it's a really good value room. So you've saved a lot of money there. Unfortunately, I had to put the hardware and software budget up because the council agreed that all councillors can have devices if they want one. So if all councillors came forward and said that they want a tablet, then I need to provide that to them because that's a resolution that you made. So I've had to put that budget up to compensate that if you want a device. Streaming, it's kept the same as last time, and I've kept it the same. The Finance Committee thought they could cut money there, but that's up to the Finance Committee. The reason why it's in the budget now is because you were using a reserve to pay for it before, and that reserve has now run out. So you've got to start budgeting for that now. Printing, publishing and all that stuff, where you're doing your Bexhill news, your marketing, your banners, and when we did Bexhill Day, I kept being told, get more banners, get more marketing. So I've upped that slightly to give me the resources to be able to make you more posters or banners when you want them. So if you want to cut back, you could cut back on your banners and marketing, I suppose. But that's something you're telling me that's important to you. So I don't know if you want to do that. Events, we've kept the same. So even though the costs of events have gone up, we've been chopping and changing things around and reduced what we can with all of those. Bexhill Carnival contributions have been made that come out of reserve so that you didn't have to put it into the budget. The 18 hours contribution will need to come from the budget because you don't have a reserve for that. But that's a decision that's already been made. You've had all your notice boards installed, and the ongoing rubbing down and varnishing or treatment of that is now coming from a reserve, so it's not in your budget anymore. Event road closures, well, it costs what it costs to close the road, so that's there. The only thing that you've got in there, you've got the Christmas closure, the remembrance closures, and you've got the Lions Market. So if you want to cut some costs, the Lions Markets is something that you've started to do that you could review. Then you've got Christmas lights. We know now the actual cost, because last year we didn't know what the cost would be to do Christmas lights. We've done all the work, done all the research, we've been through Christmas lights many times. We know it cost 55,000 in Central. So we've kept it the same, so even though we think it might go up next year, I've kept it the same so that we can maybe tweak a few areas to keep the costs the same. I think Councillor Carroll is correct. I haven't changed Little Common and Sidley. It's not that they don't ask us for money. This council decided to give them £1,000 when we first set up, and it's never changed. So I've kept it the same because you are telling me that you want to cut costs. But if you feel that actually that can go up, then you have an opportunity to put that up, and we can potentially talk about that next time if you've got some other ways that you'd like to do that.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
And this is just for me. What group would I take that to ask that question?
You don't need to, I'll talk to them.
Okay.
I'll talk to them because we talk to them all the time because we make the payments. So I'll go to them and say the council are looking at potentially what could make a difference to you, and I'll come back and we'll talk about it next time.
Thank you.
Okay. So the verge cutting, you've agreed those extra cuts. East Sussex have told us it's going to go up slightly because of inflation, so I've just upped it a bit to kind of cover that inflation cost. We should get it soon. The amenities have kept their project budget the same. They have decided to do another year of Doomsday project, whereas originally that was only decided to be 1 year. Last year you decided to do year 2, and this year amenities have asked for another year. So that's £10,000 that you've added that you were going to cut. So I've left that in there for amenities. Bexley and Bloom's the same. Grip bins is the same. Neighbourhood plan is the same. Election costs, it's going to cost you around £65,000 to have an election when the term comes up at the end, and what we're doing at the moment is putting aside that money into a savings plan. So we've already got some in the reserves, you'll see, and I'm adding to that each year to keep the costs low rather than do it in one big lot. Mayor's allowance is the same, you could cut from that. We've never spent the full mayor's allowance on mayoral activities, so there's a potential there. Members' expenses, have kept that the same. Member training, you've never really spent the member training budget. I offer lots of training to you all the time, but we don't get a lot of take up. So potentially you could cut back on your members' training. Allotment maintenance is what it is. We cut the grass and do the bits
Can
there.
I nip in there, please? Will you take a breath?
Yeah, I just want to get it all out so you know everything.
No, it's really good. I just, because the 17,150 has gone from reserves down below because we've spent it this year, we've done it all, we don't need it next year. So when it says transferred from emergency reserves, where's it gone to?
No, so now that's something different, and that's for accounting, and that's what we talked about finance. So this is allotment. So when you did your allotment work at Preston Road, that came from the SIL funds, right? So what we did was put all of that into your reserves, not in the budget. So when we spent the £60,000 to renovate Preston Road and do the fencing and all these things, they are all coming out of your reserves. So it's noted there for us because we've spent way more than £4,000 on the allotments, but it's not come out of the budget, it's come out of the reserves.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
and I have to do a separate return for SIL funds because I have to prove that it's gone into the infrastructure for the government. So water bill at the allotments, it's going to be about the same. They're all putting in more troughs, so I'm expecting it to go down eventually because as we get more and more troughs and we start doing more and more reusable water, the water bill should eventually just go, but we're not quite there yet. Insurance, it is what it is. We're expecting it to go up because it goes up every year. External fees, audit fees, internal audit fees are always around the same. Legal and professional fees, that's all of your backup for your leases, for your any professional advice that you need, and we normally spend about 10,000, so I've kept that the same. Subscriptions, that's your NALC and ESALC, so your subscriptions to the bodies that look after you, they stay about the same. Repairs and renewals, I've kept that the same because we still don't have a planned maintenance programme. So if something does break in the hub or something, if something does go wrong, I do need an emergency fund that I can pull on if something important needs fixing. Grants and community support, the Finance Committee agreed to up that to £42,000. So from 30. So it was 30 the year before, grants and donations. It's now gone to 42. I've kept it the same. So if you want to put that up or down again, you can. There's a potential there to save money. CCTV we've already talked about, which is the, and we said about the maintenance contract, that's Chromavision. I'm calling it Chromavision so you get used to it, because you'll see that name a lot, and I know I always get asked, what does that mean? So I'll put it in the budget so you get used to that. Future Asset Fund, the council decided to keep putting aside a little saving up fund in case Rother turn around and go, oh, we'd like you to take this on and you want to do it. So you're saving up for that. You always have to put into your reserves. Your reserves, your general reserves, contingency for an emergency, should be between 3 to 12 months net revenue expenditure. We're not quite there yet, so we're still saving up for that, and that's an audit requirement. So that's what that 25 is for. We've calculated roughly, if you do Devonshire Square and Channel View East toilets, as expected, it's going to be around 42,000-ish, and that's including a few little repairs and bits and bobs. And you're now responsible for the cleaning and maintenance of all of the bus shelters, which we believe, from the estimations from Rother, is going to be about 10,000. We actually don't know, because we've never done it before, and Rother do a budget including the whole of Rother rather than just Bexhill, so it is a prediction. So what you then do is you look at your reserves and you see how that affects. So what I've done is I've moved into the reserve section at the bottom of the document to show you where I think you might be at the beginning of next year if you add and subtract all of these things that are in the budget. So it gives you an idea that your future asset fund could be up to about 70,000. So if anything pops up that you need to do, you've got 70,000 for future assets. Pepsham Play Park, there's 2 pots of money. There's some coming from SEAL money and some that we put separately. I have to show them separately for SEAL legislation. So you've got 35 and then you've got another amount further down, 54. Bexhill Museum, we set aside a reserve for Bexhill Museum a couple of years ago, and that 2,000 is still sitting there. So there's no plan, no one's made any plan to do anything with it, so I've just left it as it is. Repairs and renewals, this is me trying to save up for your planned maintenance programme. So your 3 to 5 year CCTV cameras, your laptops when they come to the end of their life, all those little things. And then hopefully, once the Finance Committee has got more into this, they will then plan all the lifespan of everything that we own, and that fund will match those expenditures year on year. 5-year strategy, so a few years ago you put aside some money in case you wanted to do some things in your 5-year strategy, that's still there. Streaming costs we've spent, fireproof safe we've done, so we've converted upstairs into a fireproof area and your regalia and everything else is secure. Devonshire Square toilets we've already talked about. Legal compensation, we need that just in case we have any issues with a legal claim. CCTV, now that will be spent because I haven't had the invoice in yet. Okay, so till they invoice me for all these upgrades, the money's just sitting in the bank. That will be spent. Bus shelters, we've still got some left over. The Amenities Committee have decided to use that money on Wave Arts in order to start to paint up some of our bus shelters in some lovely designs. And the first design they're looking at is at the next Amenities meeting. So that is set aside for the bus shelters. The signage is already done and paid for. The carnival, you put aside £5,000 a year for 3 years, so you've still got 2 years left of that to go. Event road closures, we've spent all that now, it's in the budget. You see the election expenses, we're nearly at 60,000, it's 48 something. Then you've got your Pepsham allotments, we've spent it all, and then that gives you the total of what I think you'll have in the bank at the end of the year. Okay. So if you want to go back and ask me any questions, go for it.
Councillor Bragrove.
Yeah, I picked up a few things from that. First of all, I'd like to say to the clerk, thank you for that very comprehensive breakdown to actually make us understand, you know, just in case anyone didn't. So 2 good things about that was, first of all, that clear breakdown, and secondly, the amount of times I'm hearing about saving money. Now, last year, when I spoke to 2 or 3 councillors, they gladly told me that, oh, we got loads of money, yeah, we've got loads of money, this, that and the other. But unfortunately, you know, just because you've got money, it doesn't mean you should spend it, because there's going to be rainy days. And I can hear enough people now saying about saving money, which is right up my street. Up in the grants to 42,000, my question is why? Why do you want to do that? You know, 30,000 was great. It helps people. And, you know, I'll probably have something more to say about that at a different meeting. Things like doing grants for 3 years. You know, it ties us down. We can't take that back. and it encourages other people to come along and go, oh, can we have 3 years? So that's not so good. But anyway, you mentioned Bexhill News, and I don't know where I'll get the answer for that, but I did mention that in a previous meeting. We spoke about cutting that down from a page to half a page. So, if I could get an answer for that, I just don't know when I will hear about that.
The council decided to do a full page, so you're in a contract to do a full page for a year. So it's up to the council now. If you want to cut that and do half a page, I probably wouldn't recommend it, because if your biggest thing you're telling me is that you want to tell people that we're here and what you're doing, if you've got a whole page in the newspaper every month, that's going to tell people, bang, you're here, you're doing it, this is all the things you're doing. If you want to cut that down, that kind of goes against our strategy of trying to reach out to people, because the people who read the newspaper, we get in the hub, don't have access to Facebook or the website. So it's up to you. If you want to cut it, that's absolutely fine, we can. But if you're telling me that communications is your main priority, I would suggest that you keep the Bexhill News. It's £4,000 a year. I would keep it, because actually that's your one way to get all those readers. But it's up to you. But so yeah, you need to put forward a motion if you want to cut it.
Yeah, we're always going to have different views on that, but I still think half a page is good until we've got something great to talk about, and we move on and we can tell people about the play park and put the pictures in and show the bus stops and all the rest of it. But right now, I don't know how far into that year's contract we are, but I do think we should cut it to half a page. I do think half a page isn't it's quite a nice.
You can put the motion forward if you want to for that.
Yeah, half a page is 400 words, and a whole page is 425 words, and a whole page is 800 to 900.
I mean, we did discuss last time with yourself, and you said that probably 2 or 3 are, although you ask all of the councillors regularly if we've got any input for it, and probably 2 or 3 have, and sometimes people have got nothing.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, I'm pretty sure that half a page is good for us. And we could include 4 full pages through the year, 1 per quarter, where we could have a whole page and put anything great in there. So I would like to put forward that motion that we cut that down to half a page.
Okay. Does anybody second that? Okay.
No?
Come through. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine, I'll carry on. Righty-ho. You mentioned the 55,000 in the preset for the Christmas event, for the lights. Today, before I came to council, 3 people sent me. I don't know whether it was an email or whether it's a leaflet that's been sent out to the businesses. Actually, I don't know whether you've all seen that. Has everybody seen that?
So this was agreed by the committee. So the Engagement and Communications Committee asked me to save money on the Christmas lights by seeking sponsorship from the local businesses to contribute to the Christmas lights. So we are in conversations with Wave Arts, because they did a crowdfunder last year to pay for the Christmas tree. So they're going to transfer you that money to cover some of the cost of the Christmas tree, not all of it, but it's a lovely contribution thanks to Carol. So the committee asked me to write to and visit every business and ask them if they would give us some money towards the Christmas lights, not the event. The event isn't costing us anything. We're doing that through the Lions, and that's a really lovely community event. So what we're doing is we're going out to those businesses and saying, if you would like to contribute to the lights this year, you can give us some money and we'll give you a nod and a thank you in our advertising, and then it'll bring your costs down. So that was the decision of Engagement and Communications Committee.
Okay, and just finally to ask, you did say about the museum money that is still right there in the bank. I just wondered where that will be moved to, or will you be moving that out to somewhere else now?
Okay, so the reserves are the responsibility of the Finance Committee. They look at the reserves every month, and they've currently decided to leave it as it is. So if they decide that they want to spend that money somewhere else rather than the museum, that's something that they'll look at. So when you look at the finance agenda, you'll see that every month there's the bank reconciliations, the budget and the reserves. And every month that finance committee's their sole responsibility is to in-depth look at these documents and start to go, oh, what do we need that money for? What do we know is coming up, and what are we going to do about it? So that's their job.
Yeah.
So if you've got things that you want them to do and you're not on that committee, then you'd need to come along, speak in the public participation and make a suggestion to them for them to consider.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carroll? No. Councillor Drayton? No? Okay. So what I'd like to do is, as we've gone through this, and I think, sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Yes, you mentioned verge cutting. They were paying extra.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's go up.
We pay extra for verge cutting. We have 3 extra cuts.
4 extra cuts.
Okay. I checked through my diary, and I can only see 3 in the whole year in Pepsham.
I think we've had this discussion before. I'm sure they do the cuts.
They do. If you think that there are cuts not been made, I've set up a page on our website that gives you details of every area, when it should be cut. There's all the links to the East Sussex site. So if you go on there and you see that it says it's been cut and it hasn't, there's a contact form on East Sussex County Council. You report it to them and then they'll come back to you. We aren't responsible for managing or running any of that contract. It's not a contract. It's a contribution from the Town Council towards East Sussex for them to cut those verges. So I'd say to anyone, if you think a verge has not been cut, please go on our website, please check the East Sussex link and then contact them directly.
So, in other words, I check against my diary
Yeah.
against East Sussex County Council.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Jacqueline?
The clerk mentioned a budget set aside for hardware and software which would include devices for councillors.
Yes.
Have councillors been given a deadline to say when they want one, such that that would give
Don't
you a
think
bit
there
of
was a-
certainty?
I don't think there's a deadline. I think it's just if you want one, just ask the town clerk.
Yeah, there wasn't a deadline set, so it's just an open-ended at the moment.
Okay. Councillor Drayson, and then I'm going to
Well,
Move
I
on.
might be doing what you're going to do, because agenda item 11A is to review the budget and precept process for 2025-26 for approval.
yeah. So
So
what I'm
do I
going to
now move?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going
Okay.
to, as we've spoken about it, we don't have to approve it today, so defer it for the next meeting. And if there are any other questions, then you can let the town clerk know. So,
Before the next meeting.
bef-
Ask the town clerk
Yeah.
questions
It's really useful.
before the
It's
next
really
meeting.
useful for me. If you've got questions about anything, if you email them to me prior to the meeting, I can prepare the answers and then I know what I'm coming into when I arrive. So if it's something I don't know off the top of my head, I'll have time to research it and have the answer for you at the meeting.
yeah.
So I really urge anybody, if you've got questions, just list them and say I won't be able to answer them straight away, but I'll put them together, I can put a report together, I can submit it to this council next month and then you get all your answers. And I think it's all about, you must feel you are the responsible body for this budget and the precept and the management of council funds. You have to feel that you have made an informed decision. It's really disheartening to know that I've been to the finance committee and we don't feel that's being done. It's your responsibility to make that informed decision. So don't rush it. Really look at this. Write down all your questions. Just send them to me on an email. Don't need anything flash. Just send me your bullet points and I can put them all together. I can answer them all in a report and then we can come back again next month and do this again. I just need you to feel really confident on the decisions that you're making because it's the public purse and you are responsible. It's a really important time. Okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Can I move on now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is that
Go
okay?
on.
Just so, yeah. Thank you. So the next is 11B, to note that our local MP will visit the hub on the 6th of December 2024. Okay.
We have to confirm the time nearer the time.
Okay. And then moving on to 12, which is public conveniences. This is Channel View East. So we've got the lease back, and there was a few questions asked by Councillor Goss, I believe.
Yeah,
And they should be.
it's raised more. I don't know if you've read it and compared what they had before. Firstly, I was going to ask, is there any covering letter to explain the changes with it?
No, you've got everything that they gave me.
Right. So I don't know. compared it. The electrical testing they sent, yeah, very nice. It passed back in 20. Should have been redone in 23. Hasn't been done. As for, well, I guess it hasn't been done because they didn't send it. So we don't know what state it's in. They've added in some extra things, like the gates and enclosed paths leading to the premises. Those are also used by their other tenants, as I assume they are. Why should we be responsible for maintaining them? It should be a landlord's job, not us. I mean, they just slid that in. They also, I put on my note previously that external drainage should be by the landlord. It should be exempt from ours. They left that out. It doesn't mention drainage. We don't want to take out a load of difficult drainage or have problems with it when it's being used for probably other parts of the building as well. Insuring obligations, it just says tenant insures. I assume it's sort of contents only, not building. They should be insuring the building, not us. Does the tenant pay legal costs? I mean, before it said each party to pay their own, which is fair enough, but now it says nothing. And they've also, under other, it did say about a 14th share of the SIL money, the 2,218k. Now it says nothing, it's been removed. I'm just wondering why these changes have been slid in without any explanation or discussion. I don't know if you want me to write a note again, Julie, or...
Councillor Plym?
Yeah, with the concerns that Councillor Gross has mentioned there, will we be able to go back to Rother District Council and sort of say we want answers for these? If we've got electrical certificates that are missing, we could be liable for electrical work in there by taking on this lease. So it's quite sort of worrying, really.
And I think if they were taking anything on, they would definitely want electrical certificates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I agree, that's what what the next stage is, because to wait another month, I don't know if this goes back to amenities committee or what,
I think
or
just stays here.
just stays here. So I'm happy to do you a note again if that's what you want, or...
So that's for the council to decide. So what you would do is, as a corporate body, you decide if they're the questions that you want to ask. And then if that's what you're content with, then I'll send those questions back to Rother, and then I'll bring the answers back to the next meeting.
Can I ask what our lawyers do with this lease? Do they review it and say, you know, no, this isn't normally acceptable, whatever? I mean, I'm going through it from the point of view that I would with my clients, not as a lawyer, but as an engineer. And picking out things that I don't think are right, but I don't know what the lawyers, what input they have on this.
Yes, so you pay a legal advisor to review all your legal documents to make sure that they're fair and reasonable towards you, and then they take instruction from you of things that you expect to see in the lease. So you asked me not to send that to the solicitor. You asked me to keep the costs down and for you guys to keep going through it until you're happy with the whatever you've decided with Rother, and then to pass it to the solicitor for them to review. So currently you haven't had any legal advice. You're doing this as lay people, working out between Rother what you want, and then once you've decided you're happy with what they've presented back, I'll present it to the solicitor, then they'll give you the formal legal advice as to whether or not what they've presented to you gives you what you want.
That's fine, I just wonder where they came in.
I'll ask Councillor Brailsford and then ask.
I'm sorry, I had a concern about the electrical test,
Okay.
which was carried out in August of 2020. It's recommended that it's done every 3 years.
Yeah.
And in August 2020, the overall assessment of the installation was unsatisfactory. And they were making assumptions about...
There is a subsequent letter attached where they had gone back and corrected what was wrong.
Oh, sorry.
Do you think that we should, because we may be going backwards and forwards with our own concerns, do you think it may be worth now going through the solicitors and actually getting them to look at this contract? So we've got some professional advice on it, and then they may come back with everything to us in one go to then get this done, rather than keep going backwards and forwards to Rother. Councillor Drayson.
I agree with that, I like that, but we're going through what the clerk was saying about we have to agree with the questions that Councillor Goss was asking. So could we agree that they are questions indeed that we want, that the solicitors can ask on our behalf when we've passed it to solicitors if we go with your idea? We're just trying to make this quicker.
So pass it over to the solicitors, but we have these questions.
But with those questions with the solicitor.
Yeah, okay. So,
Will the solicitors then approach RDC with them, or will they just throw it back to us and say,
they'd probably ask RDC, and then they probably...
I don't know if they have direct contact.
They're representing us.
So Rother District Council will have their own legal representative. Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll pass that lease, the agreed lease, to their legal representative. We pass it to ours, and the two legal representatives work together and come back to their clients with the questions and answers, and until we've come to a final agreement, and then it will be completed.
So a motion to put this forward to our solicitor, to go to Rother District's solicitors, with the additions of the questions that Councillor Goss would like to add. Does anyone second that? Second? Yeah. Second, Councillor Winter. And then could I have a vote on that, please? No. Okay. We need to add those questions in there.
That's okay, I can get them.
Okay, that's fine. So if you could email me.
Yes. I'll do an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. So that's the toilets done. Edgerton Park. To note the response from Rother District Council regarding the ownership of the proposed new toilet and land that it sits on. They've said no. So that leaves that there, I think.
They actually said, sorry, that they didn't really answer at all. And they said they've got a meeting on the 4th of November. Presumably they'll come back after that.
Okay.
With a no.
Yeah, because their policy is if you want to have a piece of land within a piece of land, their policy is that you have to have the whole piece of land. So if you want to just own the land that the toilets is going to be on in Edgerton Park, they will likely come back to you and say, then you have to take the Edgerton Park. Because that's what we did with Pepsham. So we went to Pepsham and said, can we just have the play area? And they said, no, our policy is if you want an area within an area, you have to take the whole area. So it's likely that that would be the case. And I think that's what you need to be prepared for.
But I think what we're looking at there is that they're not actually saying take the park, they're saying buy the park.
If you want freehold, freehold,
yeah.
in law, in your legislation, there is best consideration. So if you want a freehold of something, then they have to dispose of it correctly and responsibly as a principal authority, which means they have to sell it to you at the market value price. However, if you just want to look after the park for a long period of time and keep it lovely for the residents, you can lease it 125 years or whatever that is for no cost, because the freehold remains there, but then you still have technically the ownership for 125 years and it's all your responsibility. That's why a lot of councils do leasing, because it gets around the double taxation situation where all you're going to do is pass all of your reserves to Rother District Council for a piece of land that you could have for nothing if that's what you want to maintain and look after. So there are things that you need to think about when you're thinking about the taxpayer and budgeting. If you want to buy a freehold, what you're going to do is pass that money to Rother District Council to own it, when they're giving you an option that you could lease it for a very, very long period of time, which essentially is more than we'll be alive, that you'll be able to lease it. So start thinking about that when you're thinking about those assets, like I say.
Councillor Chaplin?
So I tried to think through this leasing versus freeholding and the transfer of the money from the public's point of view, and I'm sort of okay with it, which I can explain why. And the context is that I'm aware that Rother will get valuations for toilets on an existing use versus a open market use, and so it therefore could be that we have a whole bunch of things that we could buy, which presumably we can't afford, unless we borrow a load of money. So my understanding is that if we pay Rother, let's say £20,000 for a lease for a toilet that we then own, it seems nuts that we're paying Rother for something that the public own, but presumably Rother will spend that money on things for the public. So the public aren't out of pocket they've just accidentally spent 20,000 extra quid by virtue of the way in which Rother are saying they own things that the public owns and selling them to a town council, if you know what I mean. So I'm not in principle against Rother's position that they have to sell us assets at a market valuation. It would be nicer if they agreed to leasehold, but if that is the only eventuality, it sounds as if we need a once and for all conversation with Rother about all of the things that we might want to buy, and decide whether we can buy any of them or whether we've got to borrow a lot of money to buy all of them.
And that's your visioning exercise. So we've attempted to do that on several occasions, is have like a talk about, right, what do you want as a town council? What's your strategy? If do you want to own the park, or do you want to run the park, or do you want to run the toilets? What is it that you want? And you formulate that into your strategy document, and that's a document that you then go to the principal authorities and go, right, we've got a plan. We actually would like to buy this, or lease this, or rent this. And that's what you're lacking at the moment, I suppose. So that visioning exercise could give you that information so you can start moving forward as an organisation.
Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, it's a strange situation because we're all residents of Rother District Council, and Bexhill is 50% of Rother District Council taxpayers. So therefore, we own, theoretically, half the assets, half those assets. So really, if they're doing best consideration for the half of the residents that live in Bexhill, for the residents in Bexhill, well, should be that they sell something to us at half the price they would normally sell it to. But we know that's not going to happen because it works in a really local government world, which is completely bonkers. Just in what we all want is to pass the assets over to us at a minimal charge. We can get on and run them, and then the taxpayers of both Rother and Bexhill are happy, because each one of our parish councils within Rother District Council are having this consideration to grapple with, and outside of that, each one of the parish councils up and down the country are having this consideration. It's just that we seem to have a very non-communicative district council to deal with, where other people in other parts of the country do not have. They work in cooperation with their district council. We don't seem to be able to do that.
Okay. Councillor Blagrove?
I've seen many conversations on social media where it has been said that Rother could quite easily sell us those toilets for £1 each. And that the only reason that they want to keep hold of them is because that is their asset, is they can borrow money against them all the time they hold the freeholds. Just thought I'd leave that there.
I think that's something that obviously we would have to look into, but yeah. Okay, Councillor Drayson, then we can...
I was just going to say, my understanding, yes, they are required to look for best value, but there is a facility for them to help with community. They don't have to go for the full price. I doubt if it would ever be £1 to sell it. It might be a peppercorn rent, but I don't know if we'd ever sell it.
I'll get
Buy
you the
something for
information on
£1.
that. I'll show
I
you.
think these are things that we can discuss in the vision exercise and see where we want to go with it. So, yeah, if I can move forward with that, please. Councillor Thomas.
Yes, I think one of the objections there is that back in 1974, when Rother was set up, Bexhill simply shoved everything over to Rother, and now Rother seem to want a lot of money to give it back to us.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really been any money discussed at the moment, so we don't know whether it's a lot of money or not.
But we're all residents of Bexhill, so therefore we already own these assets anyway.
Councillor Blagrove, and then I am going to go to the next.
So I just want to say that it's absolute stalemate, and we're trying to do something for the residents, and for that to happen, because many residents don't understand, they ask all of us about the toilets, but what has got to be understood is we haven't got that, what I spoke about earlier, that amicable relationship where we can sit down and help the residents get the toilets, that they want. We can't do anything about that without the cooperation of RDC. So let's hope that sooner or later that happens.
Yeah. The problem is just adding to that is I've had discussions with Rother as well before where they've said one thing and then they sort of change their mind, which is the issue really.
Yeah, it's not
So
helpful.
it is a shame, but hopefully one day we'll get to that stage where Rother will agree with
Hope
us
so.
and work with us basically.
Because it's for the residents.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, I'd like to move forward if that's okay, and move on. So leaders meeting, just to note that will be held on the 15th of November.
Can I just mention on that, please, Chair, that I know the view of Rother District Council leaders is they've had some really positive meetings with the leaders of this council,
Yeah.
and they are not anti this council. End of.
No, we have had good meetings, but we have had discussions where after the meeting some things have changed. So, yeah. Pepsham, yes.
At the leaders' meeting on the 15th of November, taken up on Councillor Drayson's concerns regarding the museum, can we ask, as full council, can we ask for a ratification as to what their plans are for Bexhill Museum?
That's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, going on to 14A, to note Rother District Council are preparing a draft lease for the park, for the play park in Pebsham, and then our town clerk can start applying for grants for that. Okay. Going on to 15A, yeah, so the town clerk's put in a date, if we could consider, Wednesday the 20th of November to hold a vision exercise. Would everybody be happy with that?
Yeah.
Can I get a vote on that, please? No,
Yes, all right.
yeah, sorry, yeah. No,
It's all
that's- Okay, so 20th of November will be a vision exercise. 16A, so I think Councillor Drayson has asked what the follow-up will be as we are now not looking at purchasing the HSBC building. I think...
I was going to say, I'm sure I asked that rhetorically, but
Okay,
I refer you to 15A. Surely it's part and parcel of the visiting exercise.
Yeah, we can.
But I know
put
the
that in
clerk
there.
has
I think the whole plan
gone
now
on with the
is
with
from
the hub.
finance. From finances that we look at our own building that we're in. Start looking at trying to use the building a bit more. Find out. I think upstairs will be used as well. And then when we start looking like we're doing stuff for the town, then we can maybe look at a building and expand them. Yeah, Councillor.
No, I was just going to say I looked at the question and it didn't take long to come to the answer really. Just don't pursue it.
Yeah.
I thought. Really like that.
So that's not going to be on the next agenda. No. Okay, so that's fine. So that's answered that. And B is so Councillor Crotty is not here at the moment, but it is to consider asking Rother Voluntary Action if they can share the new building. So their new building, the Edinburgh Wall Mill. If we could ask them if they want to share that, but we'd need a vote for that if we want to ask them.
Sorry, what's the building?
The building that is it the Edinburgh Wall Mill?
I didn't understand that. I was
So
going to say,
he's
what's the
asking
new building?
The new building, the Edinburgh Wall.
He's
Mill.
asking if
If we could ask them if they want to share the building with us
but it's their building.
Instead of the hub.
Yeah.
instead of the hub.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a question, so we just need to vote for again. So
Well, I have to say, it's not a foregone conclusion that RBA will be going in there.
yeah, it's just a question from a councillor that we just need a vote on if that's okay. So yeah, can I get a vote for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we have to ask, so it's done. And then we've got external representatives to receive reports from councillors. We've got Ralph, we've got Councillor Jacqueline and Councillor Thomas. Do you have any?
Yeah, so it was the annual general meeting and all things were approved, so it will keep going. I raised the question which you asked me to about how we could synchronise with Rother inputs into local plans or whatever. And so they said that the local plan has had a lot of feedback. It may well get delayed. It occurs to me that we could ask them to tell us something before Wednesday, November the 20th for our visioning, because if we're going to try and synchronise with their plan, surely we should find out what their thing is before we figure out what we want to do. So the planning officer said that they had previously, so I suggested, is there a way in which councillors can discuss the feedback with planning before it goes to final consultation with residents? They said they had done that before and therefore would be open to doing it again. That's as far as we got. But it strikes me that understanding where they've got before Wednesday, November the 20th would be helpful, and I don't know whether there's any way that we can do that.
Chair, my understanding is that we won't have a clue what anyone said before even July 25. The government have extended the deadline for all councils to put in local plans,
Right, okay.
which has taken the pressure off, rather, because they had so many responses. They're not even sure when I've got a meeting on the 6th of December about it, but they're not sure when they're ever going to get through those. I mean, they're obviously working on them, but it takes time. So, no, you won't get it before April, November the 20th. You'll be lucky to get it
So should we therefore arrange a second visioning exercise once they have done that or something? Is that the way around to
I
do
would
it?
have thought we could look at, if we're that interested, we could look at the Bexhill section of the local plan in draft form, because I wouldn't have thought it's going to change greatly. Well, it might do, obviously, but that would be a starting point, because as somebody said earlier, we can only go with what's in front of us, and that's what we'll have in front of us in November.
Okay.
You won't get any feedback.
Yeah. And then one other quick thing. They had raised dark skies at a previous meeting, which is light pollution. I attended a parish Zoom because there are a number of northern Rother parishes that are looking at becoming dark skies areas where they get funding for lights. Reducing light pollution. One of them has got a resident event on Monday, which I'll try and circulate. I don't know whether that thing that we're doing in January, which is at night with 18 hours, might be suitable for talking to residents about dark skies, but let me see this Monday thing first. Because
Okay, actually brought up in the motions for another, yeah. Okay. Councillor Burns not here. Bexhill Air Cadet, again, our mayor's not here today. Councillor Timpey's not here. Councillor Jacqueline on Littlegate Farm.
I think they will be looking for employers to sponsor people in the Pepsham training thing on an ongoing basis.
Okay. And then
So not Pepsham, Sidley.
Okay. And then 17F is Town Board. So they are waiting to see if they are going to get funding still on that. 18, no motions from councillors. Okay, I think that's the first time I've seen that. 19 is, so these are from the first one is from Pathways, to consider supporting the fight against the closure of Pathways residential home. So it'd just be our town clerk sending a letter in just to say that we obviously, if we do, that we support them not closing the home. It's been around for 40 years. It does support. Yeah, I don't know if everyone's read the report on that. Yeah. Okay. So it would just be a letter from our town clerk just to say that we support that. Councillor Blakegrove.
Yeah, I'm glad we've been asked, do we support it? And it would be all too easy for us to send an email saying, yeah, we support you. But I actually know two people that live in Rotherfield Avenue that are not very happy with some of the shenanigans that go on pertaining to that building. And it's serious. It's where the services are always there, the police, the ambulances, fire engines, it's on fire and all sorts from what I can hear. But I think it's not for us to just easily say, yes, we're going to support that. I wondered if we could maybe send out something to residents and ask what they think, because none of us live there. I don't know whether anyone finds that, you know, a bit of an idea, or whether we're just going to say, well, yeah, we support it when we don't actually know.
I think that would be a great idea, but I think that would be more for like a planning. Would that be a planning thing?
No, it would be where we ask
Happy.
the direct residents. I mean, just the direct residents. They'll tell you it's good or bad. They'll soon tell you, and then we can support it when we know.
Surely the direct residents would be best to contact their councillor by mail, email, or through the clerk to express their concerns.
Okay, I'll go with
So I think it's important to note that obviously the residents' thoughts and concerns, but maybe a little bit of information about Pathways, which it's a 14 bed, very pivotal and important part of the mental health fight, and 1 in 9 people have mental health in the UK. So that's a lot of people in this country, and probably a lot of people in Rotherfield Avenue, if you take that pro rata. So I think, you know, what they do there is they try to help people understand their mental health, put some construction around that, and get them back into full-time work again so they can take place in society. And I think that's an excellent thing for them to do. And I think also if people go through the and ask their counsellors, you know, information and email their concerns to the local councillors, perhaps they could also be informed of the great work that is being done there. And it's just maybe one of those issues that perhaps the manager can deal with of the property. There's 4 full-time people there, and it's staffed for 24 hours a day. So I think, you know, that could be explained to people if they're upset as well, which is quite understandable. But I do think everybody should know the good work that they do and see what can be done about residents, you know, maybe having difficulties, and professional and statutory services have to be called. I think that's a good point too.
Yeah, we don't know enough about it.
No, absolutely not. And it's a very simple, just Google it.
Yeah.
Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very worthy cause, and a very needy cause there. As Councillor Hampton's just pointed out, there is lots of people up and down this country, within this town, that have got mental health problems, and this is just a tiny fraction of the people in this town that need this support. And we're seeing now the start of a wave of reduction in funding for mental health provision, not only in this town but in this county, as East Sussex bear the brunt of real draconian budget measures that are coming in. I think we should fully support them in their attempt to keep this provision open within Bexhill, and be very aware that it might not be in that location. It might be relocated elsewhere. We have a unit being built at the moment to the north of Bexhill, which is going to be a provision for mental health services, and there may be provision there to take on board the 14 residents that are currently at Rotherfield Avenue. We don't know the timescale yet. We don't know how that's going to plan out. So I think, as well as giving their support to keep the provision open, to also be with an open mind that there may be a restructuring of what that provision looks like. So I think they're looking around for support, and I think we should give them that support. I really do.
I completely agree, and I think, as Councillor Blagrove said, though, is that there are residents around that area that not just the Pathways we need support, but also them, and maybe look at, as you said, a restructure around where they are at the moment. I think reading this, it's really important that we do support this.
Yes.
But I completely understand where Councillor Bragrove is coming from. We also need to support the residents
Yep,
there that
absolutely.
are saying there's emergency services there, there's disruptions there sometimes, is what you're saying basically. Councillor.
Well, there's many different ways of looking at it because it is needed. It's been there a long time. Funding has, is in jeopardy for it, and some of the residents aren't too pleased with what goes on. So, there's all sorts of different sides, and hopefully, they will be moved to a better place one of these days. But I just think that it would be seen as a good thing for the residents to know that we've actually been asked to support it, and that we're not just going to stamp that and go support it, so that we would reach out to the residents and we would say we realise there are issues and difficulties, and tell them a bit about, as Trudy says, tell them a bit about the background. It's all very well, for people to moan, but sometimes they don't know the background. And, sort it out like that. We can't just go, yeah, we support it, because a lot of people may not see it that way. But by doing that, by contacting the direct residents in that road, it's not a very big road, we could just send out maybe a leaflet or something like that. Maybe they could get in touch with us. Or
that was my question to you, is how do we actually do that?
Yeah, we could just print off, I don't know, 100 leaflets or however many residents there are there. Just tell them.
As Councillor Carroll said, it's up to them to come to their councillors if there are issues.
They won't. Maybe they don't even know we're here, or that they could reach out to us, or that we've been asked for support. Or
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
That would be to put Councillor Clem.
We're talking about residents of Rotherfield Avenue. The 14 people are residents of Rotherfield Avenue.
They are.
Okay, I'll just Councillor Jacqueline Margaret.
So it feels as if we're sympathetic to the continuation of the provision of the service.
We're just going to sort of send a letter to support that we support that this stays open, basically.
The institution and the building are different to the service. The service could be provided by the institution from a different building, but it's the provision of the service that we're...
I think that's not immediate.
To us. Our only thing that we've been asked for is just some support for this, and then I think if Councillor Bragrove would like to bring the attention to that, would be something completely separate. So I think for this, all we're asking for is, do you agree to send a letter of support, basically, for this to stay open?
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep it at that, and then if Councillor Bragrove would like to add anything, she can add with a motion, if that's okay. So the question is going to be, do we support a letter from the Town Clerk to Pathways? Can I get a vote on that, please? Or a seconder first, and then a seconder.
Second.
Yes.
So it's not clear what the letter would say.
It's just
support.
It's just be a support.
Against closure.
Support to say
Closure.
the closure of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is services they need.
So I've got a seconder.
Thank you.
Can I get a vote on that, please? Okay. Anyone against that? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and then moving on, so a letter from Nick Bennett, lead member for resources and climate change for East Sussex County Council. Councillor Jacqueline.
So I think the substance of the letter was in relation to the proposal by the Green County councillors and others to make East Sussex a county of sanctuary for people seeking asylum. So I've asked for it to be put on the next agenda of this meeting.
Okay, so you'd like to refer this? Or?
Yeah. I think that's the motion that I put in too late. Is that right?
Yeah, it's coming to the next meeting.
Okay.
yeah.
So the question on here is, I think it's not even a support or anything. It's just letting us know that this is what
Yeah, so my motion for the next meeting is whether we would like to discuss it, and so it's to raise awareness of the fact that there are moves by some of the county councillors to make East Sussex a county of sanctuary, which has various things associated with it, which are in the email, the letter from Nick Bennett.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's for next. That would be for the next. Yeah. Okay. So that's. Yeah. There's nothing for that. Sorry, Councillor Flynn.
Just to point out, I was surprised that this letter came to us, and I was surprised about its political overtones within the letter. When you look at the organisation that they're talking about helping refugees who are fleeing persecution in this country, from other countries. This town has had a good reputation of supporting Ukrainian refugees, although it doesn't mention any particular origin of refugee. I think we know what the angle is on this, and I will be very, very, very concerned about getting into any particular discussion regarding this particular subject at a parish level, a town level. I think this is something that has been passed down to us to stir things up, and he's stirring things up all around the county if he sent that out to every parish. And I think it's politically motivated. Be very, very aware of the intentions of this individual.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to? No?
Well, it says for information, where do we get to see this letter?
It was emailed.
It was sent out.
Julie emailed it about a week ago.
It's been emailed. Right, okay.
Okay. And then 20, so that's questions from councillors, and there are also the answers on the other side of that. So, Councillor Blagrove.
I've got two questions. Well, I've got one question and one other thing to say. So,
are you, because questions will be on the next one if there's questions.
Wait.
Oh.
So I'm just saying that the questions that were asked by councillors are there, and the answer on the other side, that's A, 20A, and then 20B, which I'm going to get to now, is to receive questions from councillors, please.
Okay, thank you. Just something about, Councillor Crotty asked if there is a policy for pets and children in the hub. I just wondered, do we need a policy for that regarding the health and safety issues at all? Okay. Should we have a policy for that?
That can be, that can be answered. Yeah, that will be answered on that.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. The next thing I wanted to say is, please could we have an update on the timings for the Christmas event, or any new information on it?
I think that was already sent out.
Or maybe it's been at a committee and I just didn't know it, but I can't find any anyway.
I think the date's out. Is it the 30th of?
Yeah, 30th.
Yeah, 30th of November.
Yeah.
I think that's already been put out a couple of times.
Will there be any updates about what is involved in that, or anything to add to it?
Guessing so, yeah. We can put that as a question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And the last thing I would like to say is that we spend a lot of money for these cameras and these microphones, and we do that so that the residents can hear what we're saying. And what I'm going to say now will be borne out when you all look at that video recording. There's been a lot of mumbling and a lot of low tone talking, and we're not actually going to, I don't know whether those are going to pick up what a lot has been said tonight. We really need to speak up a bit so that people can, that's what we've got them for.
Okay, noted. I think that's directed at me a little bit, but I will speak up.
Oh, not just you, not just you.
Councillor Drayson.
Given that last point, Chairman, I'll try and speak up.
Okay.
It's a way of getting, I suppose, onto the agenda next time instead of me putting a motion, but given the ongoing problems of filling the vacancies on the Planning and Development Committee, should we look at reducing the size of the committee?
Okay, that's a question again, that will be answered on that. It could also be a motion, I think. But
yeah.
Councillor.
Yeah.
given the amount of councillors in this full council that are not on any committee, would it be wise to nominate those councillors that are not on committees onto the planning committee?
Would the clerk be able to provide a report for the next meeting as to how many councillors have asked for a device or laptop and how many have said they don't want one? Also, we were circulated with something from Rother about, I think it's PSPOs, which says that people can't go to sleep on the beach or in public places. I'm not sure, were we being asked to provide feedback as a group on that, or is this just for our information?
Okay. Yep, noted. Okay, any other questions? Okay, and then C is to note any future agenda items. No? Okay, and then D is to consider any new risks to be added to the risk register.
Looking above, are pets and children in the hub on the risk register?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That will be answered when that will be answered. Oh, there was already a question on that. Yeah. Okay. And then before this ends, it's 22. There is no updates on that. And then going back to 21, the date of the next meeting is the 27th of November 2024. Thank you.
Well done, Chair.
Right, planning.
Right, good evening everybody and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Committee of Bexley Town Council, Wednesday the 23rd of October. We'll start with agenda item 1, public participation. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this evening? No? Wonderful, we love that. Right, to receive apologies for absence. I don't think there is any apologies for absence this evening. To receive any declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest. Do any members have any interest to declare? I will repeat my standing item as a member of Rother District Council. See no others. Chair's announcements. No chair's announcements. The minutes of the previous meeting, I assume we've all read them from Wednesday the 9th of October and we're all happy to sign those.
Here's one up there.
Yes. What's the date? 23rd. Okay. Right. Now we shall move on to item 6, planning applications. There's only a few of them this evening, so I'll go through them in the usual manner, and if anyone has anything to say, just put your hand up, holler, whatever. Item A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then we go on to item 7, planning decisions made by Rother District Council since the last meeting. They're all listed there. Does anyone have anything to say on any of those items from 7? Not seen any indication. Okay. We move on to 8, which is the neighbourhood plan. To note that we're awaiting meeting dates from Rother District Council. I think we're hoping to have something in the diary for November time, something like that, which will be good. 9, motions from councillors, there were none. 10, committee actions, there were none. 11, correspondence, there were none. 12, questions from councillors on future agenda items. There were no questions or answers from the last meeting. Does any councillor have questions or future agenda items they'd like to raise and ask?
Good, Chair.
Oh, very good. Right. To note the date of the next meeting, Wednesday the 13th of November. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well,
What was that, a minute?